All right. And we are live with another broadcast on the Roofing on the Rise studios, where you can get shingles from me here at Roofing Supply Incorporated. If you guys have not found yourself a good distributor, you got to talk to me about your distribution. Cue music. All right, cool, great. We are also sponsored by West Group Public Adjusters. If you're looking for an awesome hand-tailored claims experience, reach out to me and I'll get you in contact with West Group Public Adjusters. It's an amazing, awesome time that we're living in to be able um, to have what's called a wheelhouse. Today and every day that we go live, generally Saturdays and Wednesdays, we have an amazing guest. And today we have Kaleb Parks. Kaleb, how are you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Just another day in paradise, and I appreciate the nice words for bringing me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it's a different time that we're living in to where, we can get on to a platform like this and we can talk about relevant things in our industry, outside the industry. We can be a blessing to other people's lives. 5 years ago, we couldn't do this. 5 years ago, like I just talked about this, here not too long ago. 5 years ago, um, we're doing better than what radio broadcasters were having, you know. Um, Pretty awesome to be able to jump on a podcast and be able to share.
I'd have to agree with you. It's actually awesome, not only in the podcast facility, but also with the reach you have as a social media person. I mean, just a regular person posting regularly. For example, on my social media, I try to do like one video post a day, one photo post a day. If I can't do a photo post, I'll just double it up on videos. But doing that twice a day across the 30-day period, I mean, I'm reaching 30,000 people a month through one channel. So it's
Yeah,
amazing the kind of reach you can get today.
it is organic, you
Yeah,
know,
100%. I don't pay for anything.
and people, people utilize Facebook in a different way than, or even just social media in a sphere of things. YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Threads. Uh, you go through those. Facebook, of course. You go through all those. I did say Insta, right?
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
Instagram. Um, and each one of them is different, but you can seriously make some dough. And when you treat it like that, instead of treating it like, well, this is my social media page, this is my personal social media page, to where I could just air out what I want to air out. I can talk about what I want to talk about. Like I'm all down for, like, you know, an account that, you can like relax or whatever, but like make another one. I'm big on that. Like make one that's like not centered around you. It doesn't have it's got like a avatar picture and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'll just say it. A troll account. Like that's what people call it,
Yeah.
right? Like make that so that you can go and like relax, like post about those issues that you feel so strongly about. You know what I mean? Like do your thing, girl. But like don't I really encourage this, and I speak from a place of understanding and from a place of knowledge in this. Don't do it if you're trying to get that strategy down and that algorithm down, and you're wanting mass distribution on all your stuff. It's definitely not, a spot to like make it your, personal life. And some people are like, are you serious? Like, anyway, bro. So we could sit here and talk about social media like all day long, and I mean we could do that if you want, but uh tell me tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I actually founded Trident in probably the last 120 days, but prior to that, I had worked as a sales manager and department head for a couple of other companies, larger companies in my market. The main reason I decided to kind of strike it out on my own is my first 3 years in the business with one large company. I was able to grow rather fast in that organization, just right place, right time. I would like to say I chalk a little bit of it up to luck because no matter how great you are at anything, I think an element of luck comes into play on any kind of success. So
Yeah.
did my first year of selling there, only did about 750,000, nothing crazy there, but going into the next year, I was able to get about 750,000 sold in the first quarter of 2021, I believe it was. So I got promoted to be a sales manager rather quick. Before the end of the year, I became the department head of sales for that company. Went into the next year, ran a full year as the department head. Decided that I'd learned as much as I could from that mentorship that I'd taken at that point in time, having moved through the company rather fast. So I made a pivot to another company that had been around for a little bit longer. Ran their operation completely different because it seemed like another good place for me to go learn. And I did 6 months there, came in and changed some of their sales processes as their sales manager. We did their last year's sales in the first 6 months I was there, and I just decided that wasn't the culture for me because the way that I was brought up in the industry with the company I spent 3 years with the year before or the time before was what I was more accustomed to, a hustle culture, a real grinding culture, storm chaser culture. And this other company is a retail company, and it was a great experience to be there. But they were more of a 9 to 5 approach, and that's just not my headspace. And so at the end of June, I just kind of said, hey, I think we're at a cultural difference here. I don't know if I'm the best fit for you guys. And I would like to see things go a different direction. And I think it's best we just part ways. And so I'm sitting here. It's like July 30th. We've parted ways now. And June 30th. And I was sitting there and I was like, man, what do I do? I don't really want to go work for another person because I don't know how much more there is to learn in these different organizations. I've now seen what the store model looks like. I know what the retail model looks like. And I thought about going back into sales to kind of get out of the leadership role. And then I started to look at it and I went, well, no matter what, I have to rebuild a pipeline.
Right.
And I see that as like the hardest part of any of the juncture in the roofing industry in a lot of cases, just getting consistent leads and rebuilding your pipeline. So I just decided to start on my own company, and I wanted to change some of the things that I'd seen in other organizations. I don't want to do like a one size fits all for everybody. I like to do roofing systems, but build the system that works best for that homeowner's budget and needs. And so that was the birth of Trident. We partnered with Trident Solar and launched Trident Roofing.
Wow. So you partner with a solar company?
Yeah, I was consulting with a solar company to try to work on some of their sales systems. And when I decided that I was going to start my own company, I called the owner and I said, hey, I know you were interested in doing this. I think I'm going to start my own company. Would you be interested in doing some kind of partnership? And so he sold me a piece of Trident Solar. I sold him a piece of Trident Roofing, and we launched it all the way out. That way we could kind of pair our brandings and be able to increase profits. Because my experience with roofing and solar is they go hand in hand in a lot of cases, and a lot of companies want to do roofing and solar. But what I've found is as humans, when we start to come into the slow season, let's say in the winter time, that's usually slow for most people, we fall back on our strengths. So roofing owners tend to double down on roofing and kind of forget about solar for almost a quarter or two. And then they try to roll it back out when it starts to pick back up. And then so that program really never takes off unless you have somebody designated and specialized in solar to run it.
Yep.
And I knew that I wanted solar to be a part of it because it's a great revenue stream, but I knew I shouldn't be the guy responsible for that because it's not my background.
Yeah.
So I just found a guy who only does solar. I only do roofing, and we partnered so that we'd be able to grow both at the same time.
That's awesome. You know, I work with a lot of organizations. I was in roofing for 11 years, owned my own roofing company. And know what you're talking about is true. You know, you got to have that aspect. And it's just been a struggle for a few years trying to find that right partner. Because not everyone is a solid company. There are those organizations that are out there that are giving the other ones a really bad name. And there's a lot of those out there. And, you know, they're the companies that go after, you know, older ladies and gentlemen with no tax liability and sell them back goods and, you know, on and on. Like you could go on and on about, you know, the offsets and what they're doing with that and how they're doing it. The percentages for the loans. And it's just, you really have to be a good sales organization to operate a business like that. You have to do it ethically. You have to do it the right way. You have to make money, right? Like, so I'm not against making money. I'm I'm about making money the right way and not, putting yourself out there to be something that you're not. And there's a lot of organizations that are like that, that are sales organizations only, and they don't understand the fulfillment side. And so, you have to have someone that um is the best of both worlds. That you need to have both sales and fulfillment for that solar model.
100%
Um,
agree. And I think it's the same thing with roofing because I can tell you from personal experience, my background is in the sales side of roofing. Of course, depending on what company you go for, sometimes the sales guy is involved in production, sometimes they're not, just depends. I was involved in production for like the first part of my career because it was a newer company and
yeah,
before we were able to switch it off. But even now, I'm learning a ton about fulfillment. I mean, it's obviously not my background. I've been very fortunate. I've got mentors all in the city that are helping me, that own different companies that have pointed me in the right direction. That's one of my favorite things I think about the roofing industry is it's funny because it's like dog eat dog world in some contexts. It's really competitive, but it's
yeah,
also you just find yourself in the right pockets. You also get some of the best support that I've ever seen from other owners that are technically your competition. Like, no, man, like here, have this. This will help you overcome this problem. Don't do this because this is where it led me. Just so much good mentorship in this industry as a whole.
yeah, yeah. I'd agree. There's also a lot of nasty shit in this industry, and that's why I have a podcast. That's kind of um, a part of the reason why I wanted to bring something positive that can focus on uh, entrepreneur business mindset and strategies, routines and strategies. That's the main kind of core of what we go after. And a lot of people, and the reason why is like, a lot of people want to see, what successful people and or prior successful people have done in the past and what you're doing now and how you do things differently. Um, I'm not saying that there wasn't that before, but there's definitely not a podcast out there like mine, which I'm blessed to be able to say. And yet, and I'm also different from every other podcast that's out there. And that's what's beautiful about podcasting is being able to bring something niched to your market and bless and help encourage other people that are out there. People don't understand like how much work goes into stuff like this, you know? I mean, Caleb, just you yourself, you had to take the time out of your day to sit down and go over this. I will notate that I was late. Sorry about that. But like, you know, those are things that we all prepare for to go into something like an interview. You know, I've been on the other side and I'm there quite often. I like to put myself on other people's podcasts. When anybody asks, I gladly accept. And I had my cherry popped on a podcast, podcast cherry. And and that really changed the outlook that I have on life and business because I knew that there was something else out there that could give me a better voice, and that was this, right? And so, I really do agree with you that there are those things in this industry that you can utilize to, be a part of that rising tide. And everybody, talks about wanting to do it, but execution is really what separates the people that talk and the people that walk, you know? Um, but what inspired you to enter into the roofing industry? Like, why did you like, what about this did you like, what grabbed you? What was shiny?
So it's a bit of a longer story, but it's very funny. I fell here by accident, 100%. Never thought I'd be a roofer. I moved to San Antonio shortly after I graduated high school to go to college. I went to UTSA for about a semester, and I'm sitting in class paying a lot of money because I'm the oldest of six, or six on my dad's side. I'm like the oldest of nine. So there was not much college help when I went to go that direction. So I'm
Yeah.
paying for these classes, and I'm sitting in class, and it's super boring. So I decide that I'm going to take some time off because I'm paying this for myself, and I can't do it. So I take some time off and I end up in sales. I know that sales is about the only way I'm going to make the money that I want to make without going to college. So I tried my hand at cars. I sold makeup. That was my first job ever in sales. I'm a dude,
What kind of
don't wear
makeup?
the product. I sold makeover essentials. So this is my ice breaking into sales. Is I was the guy that would bump into people at the parking lot, like with the cologne kind of thing. I used to do that kind of stuff. That was my introduction to sales at 18.
Dang,
Uh,
bro. That's rough
so I
out
did
here,
that for
bro.
about 3 months. There's not a lot of profit in that. There's not a lot of commission in that. So that was just, it couldn't keep going. Wasn't making enough money. So I just moved over to cars. Absolutely terrible at cars. Could not. I worked in cars for 6 months, 6 weeks. I sold one car. I worked at Nissan and Bernie. It was terrible. That put me in
Fine,
debt
Texas.
because it's a commission job. So I went to construction for about 8 months, and this is when I just kind of like went all in on the sales. So I was a operator for a utilities company. We finished out our job site, moved me to another one. They put me on a concrete crew. Nobody on the concrete crew spoke English, so I could not operate machinery because it was not safe because I could not communicate with anybody outside. So they pulled me out and they had me pulling concrete. It's like August,
Oh,
110 degrees.
oh.
And I'm pulling this concrete and I'm sitting here and I'm going,
How long did you make it?
I will. I was
That's
8 months
what.
in at this point. So the
What?
moment I started
In
pulling, yeah.
concrete?
So I was,
Oh no,
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 no.
no. I was doing utilities and
Just
I got
that
moved
job.
to concrete. Correct.
Right. Okay. I was about to say I lasted in concrete for all of like 4 freaking days, dude. Like I literally died. Part of my
I
skin.
got shouts out to all the concrete workers because that is so hard. I
Gotta
did it
say,
for 4 weeks. The
screwed
first
up.
day it's 110 degrees and we're pulling a pad and I'm pulling concrete and I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to not do this. And I had went into sales kind of naively thinking that, oh, I like to talk to people. That'll be easy.
Fucking
Well,
heat stroking and shit. Like,
yeah,
uh,
I came to the conclusion that sales was more than just talking to people.
yeah,
So from that moment, I'm pulling the concrete. I finally get back in my machine after like 2 weeks. They put me back on the utilities. I'm listening to audiobooks religiously. So
yeah.
I crush like 4 audiobooks in 2 weeks, and I'm like, I'm ready to go interview. So I take interviews in plumbing, HVAC, roofing, cars again. I'm looking everywhere, just looking for a training program.
Yeah.
And when I stumbled across a company, they're called Mammoth Contracting. Great organization. It was the first place I went and worked. They had a good training program, so I went through that. And my first year was in 2020. I started January 6th of 2020. So
COVID.
I'm knocking doors, and we get locked down. So that's immediately my first experience in the
COVID.
industry.
God, that's
So
hard out here.
and then I did really bad my first 6 months in the industry. I sold something like 20 to 30 roofs, and 2 of them got approved by the insurance because I really didn't know what I was looking for. I was getting on roofs, having people file claims. I'm 20 years old. I don't really know. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Right.
And so in my first 6 months, I made maybe $5,000, and I was roughing it. I'm back in debt. All the money that I saved from the construction to take me out of debt from doing sales the first time.
Yeah.
And it's like June or so, we finally come out of the lockdown. We get a late storm at the beginning of June. And I'm like, I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to go back to construction. Like,
Yeah.
I'll knock as many doors as it takes. And between June and December of 2020, I was able to figure it out, put $750,000 together in that 6 months, and the rest has been history. Because I chose not to go back to school and decided to go into sales, all the money that I had saved and put away to go to college, I've invested in different training, whether it was like Grant Cardone's university, the Roof Strategist. I've paid for some of Lee Haid's stuff. Like, I've just spread that out, read a
Yeah.
ton of books. I've read probably 100 and read and or listened to 150 different sales and business based books over the last 2 years, 3 years, just trying to give myself some sort of education in the trade that I'm in. And I tell everybody that when it comes to sales, you have to look at it kind of like a tradesperson. There's no special school for us, unfortunately, but it's
Right.
kind of like being an electrician. When you go to school to be an electrician, you don't learn how to wire everything up. You learn the principles to follow so that when you come to a job, you can use those principles to know how to wire everything up. I find sales to be the same thing. There's certain principles in conversation that if you know how to structure the conversation right, how to ask the right questions, what you should and shouldn't be doing with your body language, you can kind of dictate the result. You can definitely dictate it more consistently than you could if you just go in and try to have a conversation with somebody.
Mm. So, Trident Roofing, besides partnering with solar, uh, how are you different than any other roofing company?
We have a really big educational focus. So, my sit down and estimate is not a very short process. We dictate at least 2 hours for every sit down because we have an expectation that if we go out and we do agree to meet and come out and look at everything, we need at least 30 minutes of your time to go through everything, or we just don't present an estimate. So, a big thing for us is education to make sure people know the trade offs in the material they're getting, exactly what the pros and cons of, say, using a starter versus not using a starter, what you're losing on the system's warranty if you don't do this. Like, we try to build the roof that fits their situation the best, and we either give them the manufacturer warranty. Our big thing is to try to sell systems like most people, and we do it based on a good, better, best, and we find the better model that fits them. But also we do budget roofs. So, like, if, say, a full system through Atlas doesn't make sense because you can't afford it, or it's a rental property or something like that, I'm okay with using the 3-tab starter or the 3-tab ridge, but I also make sure that every client we work with understands what the trade-off is. Like, hey, if we do this, it will work, but your ridge is going to age faster than the architectural shingle. So you do need to be aware that you will have to replace this before the actual roof needs to be replaced. Also, because we're not using the actual manufacturer product here, there's no longer a manufacturer warranty attached to it. I still give a workmanship warranty attached to everything, but it's limited. It's 5 years, something like that. But we try to find the solution that fits people best.
That's cool. I like that. One awesome sales trainer that I know, Dale Childers Jr., always teaches that you never take something away from the deal without like changing that deal, right? Like, so if you if a client comes to you and they want that systems warranty and they go down to your your budget friendly, you have to explain, you have to take some stuff away, and then you have to explain. And that right there sets yourself aside from a lot of other people, because a lot of other people just won't do that. They'll just say, okay, cool. Well, it's X amount of square, right? Like, they don't go through and take that time, and I just thought about this. Like, if more contractors would just on this alone would communicate with their client that they're there to educate them better and that they need extra time with them. So please plan on sitting down with from the time that I knock on your door to the time that I leave, anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. If they planned for that every single time, I guarantee you they would close more deals. Just
I
off the
also
dime
think,
alone.
I think it's actually one of the things that I've noticed in my shorter career, but through the trainers, is just people commoditize themselves. And if you go in expecting that they're not going to want to sit down with you, that happens 90% of the time. If
Yeah,
you don't set the expectation before you come out, you're not going to get the time of day, or they might leave in the middle of your inspection and tell you to email it. If
right.
you are open to emailing it, most people will be like, can you email me the estimate? The average sales rep, unfortunately, is going to be like, yeah, no problem. When in reality, you should push back against that. You should say, well, when's a good time for me to come back out and give it to you? Because there's usually a lot of questions that follow this. Most people only have to replace their roof only twice in their lifetime if they're lucky.
Right.
I have to do this every day. I want to be able to answer questions, be a good resource for you.
Yeah.
So just making sure that you're setting that expectation from the time the appointment is set to the time that you show up. Don't show up and just like knock on the door. Hey, I'm going to start looking at the roof. Show up, knock on the door, set an expectation for what you're doing that day and what they should be ready to do once you come down. And so that you have that better chance to sit down and educate them, because yes, it 100% increases your closing ratio.
Yeah.
Every sales team I've ever worked with where we follow this set of principles, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a genius who came up with it. I've paid great sales trainers to teach me how to do this stuff.
Right.
But it's like, once you implement it and you follow the steps every time, if your closing ratio isn't going up, that might just be a problem on you as a whole in the sales industry.
Right. Man, what kind of challenges have you faced so far with starting Trident?
Starting Trident, I will tell you that production has been a challenge just because my background's in sales. So I'm learning a lot more about the ins and outs of ordering the material, trying to hammer your waste down so you don't have to make as many hot runs during the day. Little things like that has been a
Where are you
super
located?
challenge. I'm in San Antonio.
Oh, perfect. When we get off the phone, I'll talk to you about helping that portion of your business
Awesome. Sounds
easily.
good.
Absolutely.
So there's little things like that. Also learning the legalities and the insurance and just general
Ugh,
business stuff. Just
yes.
learning how to be an entrepreneur. I think is one of the things that has really been a struggle because for as much as I know about running a roofing company and keeping things going, I don't know anything about starting one. So that was the first thing that I ran into is like a hurdle. I'm like, oh, what licensing do I need? What insurance do I need? What codes do I need to be aware of in my city? Things like that.
Yeah,
So it's really more of the nuanced things that you don't really think of if you're not the owner that I've ran
right.
into that I've just had to learn.
Just don't roof a house in Converse without a permit, or you will end up in court. I'm just gonna let you know.
Yeah, Converse, and they've also got a weird thing about their decking because the houses are so old
Yes.
that all their decking has to be replaced because of a code upgrade.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah,
always
you've got
interesting when
to
you get
pay
an insurance
attention.
deal.
You hit it on the head. Like, if you don't pay attention, you're gonna lose a lot of money.
Yeah, and then I'll be honest, I also have a way healthier respect for what production does now
Yeah,
because being an
of
arrogant
course.
sales guy for most of my career, I'm just like, they're just sitting on the job. What's going on? Like, I
What are
don't
these
get
guys
it.
doing? Yeah, man, you know, I learned from the the production guys, so the crews. Big shout out to, Mota. Um, he actually is what he goes by is Mota. His name is not Weed. He just goes by that, okay? Um, I really do thank God for that guy because when I got into the roofing industry, I sold a roof in the first week, and so I was putting that on. I got commission, before anybody else did. I'd also done door to door for myself, landscaping business that I had started. So like I understood the hustle already. Like I knew you had to go out and what you put in, you got out. And so but the other side of like making sure your client signs off on colors and stuff like that, right? Like little bitty things that you don't necessarily think about. I learned real quickly. I put on a roof that the wrong color, and I've put on the wrong product and shit like that in the past. And I was able to have that training, not to mention learn what the components are, how it watersheds, and really understand how to do a repair. Like they got me on the roof, installing felt, installing shingles, installing valley, installing ridge. Like I helped, and it wasn't that they asked me to, like, hey, I need your help. I don't have enough guys. It was, hey man, I'm here, do you mind helping me learn a little bit? Absolutely. Grab a tool bag, grab a hammer, grab a pry bar, grab the nail gun. Let's go. And when I took the mentality of let me be a servant and let me understand and not necessarily be like a what most people think servitude means, right? But just having that servant's attitude, that servant's heart, I was able to really learn more than most of my peers at that time because, they were all partying. And I'm not saying that I didn't party. I made more money than I'd ever made in my entire life. I lived in Lake Whitney, Texas. So,
It's a great
as
place.
little for meth. Uh,
I like the lake.
okay. Okay. Yeah. The lake is great, but like, uh, I came from a small town and a lot of people have, and so that, um, man, mentality is just different, you like it gets stuck here and not necessarily out here, and so, you know, when I'm like, I'm like, I come from that, so I'm like, well, I just need to understand, and whenever I can understand, I can learn, I can sell, and that helped me so much more. I worked more for myself. I worked more with, production, uh, and it's just like giving a little bit of advice. Uh, Not that you need it, but if you do want it, here it is. Those production guys, like I always try to keep those guys like right next to me and understand them and help them with whatever they need because ultimately they're fulfilling what your entire
100%.
sale is.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, and that was something that I found to be important. Maybe I'm just a little bit of a nicer dude, but I always found it was good to be close with production, even as a sales rep,
Yes.
because ultimately, if I'm tight with production and the production manager that's on my job, I can feel more comfortable myself as a sales rep or the sales manager, whatever role you're in, leaving my own job site to go sell more because
Yeah.
I trust that this person's going to take care of things. And then the added benefit is you get to know them. They'll tell you little things that you maybe never thought of. And it's funny you mentioned like building the roofs. That is, I've never done it before, but since starting Trident, I have put on at least some portion of every roof we've done because
Yeah.
I want to know this process, and I'm trying to build
Yes.
SOPs for production and onboarding, and I can't do that if you've never done anything before. So like
Yeah.
helping with the labor, little things that I now know to pay attention to that I didn't know to pay attention before, things to add to my final checklist that I didn't know were important, things like
Yeah.
that. And it's been great because I'm getting more firsthand knowledge. In fact, I'm going to try a wild project here in about 2 months. My dad needs a new roof, so we're going to attempt to do his roof, like me and my clan of little brothers. So it ought to be an interesting YouTube
I've done
video.
that, with my aunt, and what's crazy is, like, just watch the weather. That's all I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
because, that project is gonna take longer time than your crew is gonna do it. I'm just gonna let you know, like, break
Oh,
your
I
heart
know
right
it's
now.
fine.
Um, but it's gonna be fun. So, like, I did the same thing, had my in-house crew. We did a lot of, like, sheetrock remodels, especially right after Harvey, and so, my aunt calls me and she's like, "Hey, got an issue with my roof," uh, and they'd already paid for the roof, Germania, and so, little town, Lake Whitney, right? And
Hmm.
so the codes in Lake Whitney are, fuck all. They don't have any codes, and so when you try to, okay, she's got space decking, she doesn't she needs solid sheath decking. Like, I went through, like, getting that paid for, and just trying to get a red flag was like, "You gonna" no, it just didn't happen, okay? We got on that roof, by the time we're, like, really going, we got, like, rain in the next 12
Oh, that's so
hours.
good.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's no
12 to
good at all.
24. And so I'm like, "Listen, um, I can do what you want, but, uh, I'm gonna need to bring my crew in." And, God bless my aunt. I just wanna know that it's okay, and, like, she just started going at it, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, the crew would have just, like, it had been the same thing,
Mhm.
Uh, bro, it was one of the most awesome experiences because, fighting against that time and doing it like we did it by hand. We didn't do it with nail guns. We did it by hand. And so it was just different. Like her garage, I don't think it'll ever leak. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
it we did so much stuff like flashing cement, all kinds of stuff for her, like as if we were in a hurricane zone, but we weren't. That is probably gonna be like, yeah, record that shit. I wanna see that. That's gonna be a fun time for you, and it's gonna feel like a different time in your life. And when you, like, in, like, a year or 2 years in the future, you're gonna be like, "I wanna do that again." Like, because it's different. Cool. I equate that to stuff like, Tim Brown just spent 24 hours on a roof,
Yeah,
right? Like, we make our time the best time of our life when we make it.
100%.
And, being able to see people like that is pretty cool. And, like, yourself, it's very motivating because, what you've done in such a small period of time and what you can do and what you're, setting out to accomplish now is pretty awesome. How do you maintain consistency and building Trident, right? Like, you have your own life and you're also building a company. How do you do that? How do you maintain that consistency?
So it's a loaded question. So I would say that the first step in that was just separating. I did most of this before ever starting Trident. I think the first thing is identifying who you are and who you want to become, and
Okay.
starting to build your personal life to become that person. So for an example, I believe that in order to be a good leader and owner of a company, I needed to be well educated. I needed to be able to speak well. I needed to be able to lead well. So I worked on all of these things while getting paid by somebody else to try to
Yeah.
become the best version of me before starting Trident.
Yeah.
And I've developed a couple of habits that I've carried into Trident to help grow not only Trident, but continue to grow myself. One of the first things I do is I keep a board in my house on the fridge. And there's 5 things that I have to do every day. I got to work out every day. It's good for my brain. I've got to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book every day. I've got to write every day. It keeps me present. I've got to track my food every day because if I eat like trash, I'm going to feel like trash and I can't work. And then, there's one more thing. Oh, and I keep track of all of our finances daily, whether it's the business or myself. I document every expense. I do everything every day so I know where my money's at. So those were the things that I started as a foundation 3 years ago, doing it every day. Every time I do those 5 things, I check it off on the calendar and I keep it on my fridge. So I'm consistent always. And I follow a rule. Everybody's human. Everybody needs a day off every once in a while. My rule is I just can never take 2 days off. Because the moment you take 2 days off, that easily becomes a week becomes a month, and you forget to get back on your habit and you lose it and you start over and over again. So that's how I start with my personal self, just trying to keep myself the person that can run a company. Because I think who you
Yeah.
become is almost more important than what you get out of something.
Yeah.
But as far as growing Trident, again, very fortunate to have great mentors and had paid for great training through the years. From the startup, we started on the EOS traction system.
No.
Huge
Okay.
advocate of EOS and reading traction if you run a business. Especially, I've had great success with it with the last 2 companies I've worked with. So I
I
immediately
started reading
implemented it.
that and put it down. But like I've got 6 other books that you know what I mean? Like, and
For
then
me, the
Adam
book thing,
Bensman released
the
his
book
book.
thing, I'm huge. I'm actually supposed to be in that book somewhere. um, so the book thing, I'm not a big reader. I was never a reader until literally pulling concrete. That's when I started reading. So I tell everybody I'm super ADHD. I get distracted real easy. I can't just read a nonfiction book and stay in it. So I
Right.
always buy the Audible and I listen to it at the same time as I read so that I can dictate and take notes. And then I have like 2 stimulus reading it and listening to it. And I stay way more locked in and I retain a lot more of the knowledge per book I read. Also, when you're listening to it on like times 2 to keep up with your eyes, you will eat books. Like 10 pages takes 7 minutes. So it's just a
Mm.
matter of you consume so much more knowledge. It's helped me a
Huh.
ton.
Okay. That's about to happen. Like that's how I'm about to read my books from here on out.
Yeah, I highly
Uh,
recommend it because it's helped me a ton.
how about innovation? Right? Like how do you um how do you balance your like standards and stuff?
Um, I'm sorry. So like how I'm checking standards and what I guess is the question I have.
Really your quality standards for your business. So let's say how your processes, right? Like, sales rep. Do you have any sales reps?
So right now it's just me at Trident. I was waiting to do sales reps until around January just because I want to onboard people to be successful. So I'm big
Okay.
on SOPs, standard operating practice. So for quality control, let's say one of the things I was mentioning earlier is building those checklists. So I'm building out a final qual check that our production managers need to go through and take pictures of certain things that I want on every job, signed off on by every job, so that we have some kind of tracking to see that quality control is being done. We've got a
Yeah.
customer completion form, standard stuff to take the homeowner around the house, make sure they're 100% happy with how clean everything is, how everything looks, so that we don't have as many issues on collections on the back end. Because I mean, how many people have closed out a job and then 3 weeks later they're like, "Oh, my fascia is chipped right here." So little
Right.
things like that we try to avoid by having the right SOPs in place. And then when it comes to like sales and the type of people that you hire, I think it's really important that you just hire, fire, and promote based on your core values. And that was something that we set very early in our company.
That's awesome. How do you stay motivated during difficult times?
Man, but hard times are a part of life. I've had a harder life at certain points in my life, so I've just kind of accepted that life's kind of like a heart monitor. If it's not going up and down, you're dead. So you just kind of have to know that when you're headed down, it can only go so far down before it goes back up. So I just always believe that it's going to get better. And I always believe things are going to work out. I'm kind of like a hopeful optimist, if you will, all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
bad things happen, but try to find the good in it because I think you alluded to it earlier. You get to pick the life you live. So
Right.
is it hard or did you have like a hard hour? Did you have a hard discussion? Did you have a hard day? So I think a big problem is people struggle to compartmentalize certain parts of
Yeah.
the job. So like if I had a hard day at my job, am I going to be stressed out? Am I going to be maybe a little bit aggravated when I come home? That's not fair to my fiance. That's not fair to my family when I come home. Things like that. So I try to compartmentalize as much as possible and really take a step back and realize that I maybe didn't have a bad day. I had a bad hour or I had a
Right.
bad interaction. And I think a lot of people let a bad interaction or a bad 5 minutes drag into their whole day. And now you've had a bad day when you could have just had a bad hour. And the writing that talked about earlier has really helped me with that because it keeps me present on days that I don't do my best because I'm still human like anybody else, right? So I'll write
Right.
down like, oh, I had a bad day, and I'll start looking at this page that I wrote about my day, and I'm like, well, really, you just had like these three shitty conversations at the beginning of your day, and you let that snowball into the rest of your day. And the
Yeah.
writing has really helped me stay present and catch when I'm not doing what I say I should be doing.
Mm.
So that
So
helps me
you
a
just
ton.
like jot it down notes throughout the day?
Yeah, so every day, whether sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the evening, I write half a page. And then underneath that, I write six of my goals. I am a billionaire. I'm a real estate investor. I work out every day. I write every day. I read every day. And Trident's a $50 million company. And then I write three things that I'm grateful for. So every day I'm doing half a page, my goals, three things I'm grateful for. And that keeps me really optimistic, keeps me really present, keeps me really happy. And I usually try to do it when I am down because it's like a check like, hey, what are
Yeah.
you down about? So it forces you to write it down. And then that's another thing is once I've wrote it down, I look at it, it's like, is that something I can control? If not, I need to let it go. If I can control it, fix it.
Mm. What about work balance, work-life balance? How do you maintain a good work-life balance?
I don't believe in balance. That's that's
Ladies
my
and
answer.
gentlemen. He's like, "Balance, what the
I
fuck is
believe
that?"
there's a time to work and I believe there's a time to be home. And there's seasons for it. Right now I'm in a season of work. I build my life around my work schedule right now. And
Okay.
when I'm focused on my life, I build usually it's in the winters when we're a little bit slower and we get, the evening, the suns go down at like 6 o'clock.
Right.
6 to 9 in the evening, I hang out with my family, and that's the season of family time. I'm more present. It's the holidays, things like that. But I'm also very fortunate that I don't have kids. It's just me and my fiance. We get married here next month, and
Congratulations.
thank you. She's really understanding because I made it really clear in our relationship that in this point in my life, this is time to build my foundation. This is time to grow. I want to be home just like anybody else, but I don't see I believe in paying today for what I want tomorrow. And I'd like to be home more when my kids are there because my dad was an entrepreneur as well. And when I was growing up, certain things he could not attend because he
Yeah.
was growing a business, right? So I want to do most of my sacrificing now, hopefully, in
Yeah.
theory, so that I have a little bit more flexibility and I have the systems in place and I have the people in place to be able to step back and go to the kids' games in the future, to be there for my future wife. Like things like that, I find are very important. But right now, I build my life around my work schedule, and it's not to my family doesn't love it necessarily. My fiance gets it because she sees me every night, but it's a sacrifice, and I think that's what entrepreneurship is what are you willing to give up to get?
Yeah, I vibe that. I didn't follow that. I had children from a very young age. Um, I have 4 children. My oldest is 13, and, my youngest is 4 and thinks he's 40. Um, man, I think that that's a very it's an admirable thing to do. Excuse me, I'm tongue twisted today, I don't know why. Because really, you're sacrificing, um, a lot of your time to build something right now when you could be partying like all your friends.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's something that not a lot of people recognize, is that, you know, you're not you're not out there doing what everyone else is doing. You know, you're where you're supposed to be. You're getting up early, you're going to the gym, working on your business, you're working on your life, and that's an awesome thing because you're going to look back, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you're going to be like, damn, I'm glad I did those things, because if not, that's where I could be.
Well, and
And
it's also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. You're good.
Well, one of the things I've become quite a Alex Hormozy fan here recently, but one of the things that I've really taken from him is like realizing that this is what hard feels like, and
Yeah.
this is why most people don't do it. And that is one of the most motivating things that I run into. Like when I wake up at 5 o'clock and I don't want to go to the gym, it's like, this is what hard feels like. This is why you're
Yeah.
going to do it. When I'm up at 9 o'clock editing some kind of video to get social media scheduled on a business page or my own page or something like that, it's like, this is what hard feels like. This doesn't look hard, but I don't want to do this at all. So this is what
Yeah.
hard feels like. And this is why you're going to do it and why most people won't. And just staying present with like, when something's hard, it kind of gets me jazzed up to do it a little bit more. Or if I'm a little
Yeah.
bit uncomfortable, just because if I'm uncomfortable, half of the people that would be sitting in the situation wouldn't continue forward. So, like, hopping on random podcasts or random, just putting yourself out there, that's not comfortable for a lot of people, not 100% comfortable for me all the time. But I'm going to keep doing it because I don't think most people will. And it's the same thing with my business. Like, I love to work Saturdays. The only reason that I wanted to be on this podcast because who was it? Jay tagged me in it, so I wanted to make time to do this. But typically Saturday, that's when people are home, and we work untraditional hours when people are home.
Yeah.
So 5 to sundown, out trying to talk to people. Saturday all day, trying to talk to people. Sunday, some would say it's the Lord's day. I believe the Lord created the heaven and earth and then took a rest. I didn't do that, so I work Sundays too. And I just believe that's because people are home, and I'm going to talk to people.
I like that. He's like, the Lord rested after he made the heaven and the earth, but I didn't make the heaven and the earth. So I'm working Sunday. Stay hard. Like, that's some David Goggins right there, bro. Like, God dang, bro. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so just embrace hardship, man. It's motivating as long as you look at it through a different frame. I think when people hit hard things, they're expecting life to be easy. I just never expect life to be easy. And in fact, when you do hard things, and I'm sure you can attest to this, it's the proudest you ever are of yourself. It's the
Right.
happiest I've ever felt. Like, I'm a big dude. I'm like 230, 6'3". And I've lost 60 pounds over the last 2 years. And I'm fixing to go run a Tough Mudder the weekend before my wedding. Not because like I trained for it or anything, because it seems hard.
Yeah.
It's something we signed up for like 2 months ago, me and two of my buddies. And I was like, I want to do this before I get married because to me, it's like a rite of passage, like doing something hard before we do something fun. But
Yeah.
just putting yourself in those circumstances to bet on yourself, it makes me so happy. I think it's like a cure to just sadness. Is like usually when people come to me and they're like upset about something, I'm like, well, what are you doing? Are you
Right.
doing anything that is hard? Are you challenging yourself? Are you going to the gym to like at least push yourself there or something? Because I get it. Some people just want to work the 9 to 5 and take care of their families, and that's respectful. I mean, I get it. Everybody has a different life path, but
Right.
create hardship in your life because to me, creating hardship is giving me my best and happiest moments.
Yeah. That's right on it, man. I think the last thing here is, what are your thoughts on the future of the roofing industry? Like, where's it going? I might have.
It's interesting to see where insurance is going. I think there's going to be a shock to our industry with how insurance is trying to. I don't know all the story, but it seems like insurance is trying to change a little bit of the claims process, and I think that's going to be
For sure.
hard for a lot of storm-based companies. So I see that maybe in the future. I think another thing is AI. I think AI is going to be a huge market disruptor in a lot of ways. One of the reasons it's still just me over the last 3 months is because I've implemented so much AI to try to reduce having to hire somebody out.
Okay.
Like you can have AI answer your phones, you can have AI do cold calls, you can have AI schedule your social media, you can have AI edit all of your social media, you can have AI come up with content ideas and then just act on them, scripts. I mean, and it only gets better. I've had AI write 90% of the SOPs I've touched in the last year. I mean, I maybe do a rough draft, plug it in there, and ask it to optimize it. So I think AI is going to be a game changer for a lot of companies if they learn how to use it.
Right. That's key. When they learn how to use it, it's kind of the hard thing. Really is. I I uh I personally work with AI all the time. This list I generate, I have a prompt that I've written and I have like 2 or 3 different, actually I've got a ton of different prompts, but you know how it is. So like, you develop a prompt for that and and then I've got an awesome, like every time I do a podcast, I have an awesome layout, like every single time. And if I don't do that, then, I'm not giving it, I feel like, I could do all that myself, or I can shave off some of the time, and have somebody, AI do it. Um, Otherwise, I'm gonna have to pay for that. You're right. It's a big deal, you know. Man, I appreciate you coming on today, Kaleb. It has been an awesome live stream. Cue that music again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for following along yet again, constantly. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do that. We are sponsored by Roofing Supply Incorporated here in the Houston marketplace and just about everywhere now. I'm shipping all over the place. So if you're in a different market, different state, holler at me. Telephone number 210-919-8987. 210-919-8987. I would love to handle your distribution needs. That's right. I work as a sales rep at a distribution warehouse. Kind of crazy, right? I also am sponsored by West Group Public Adjusting. West Group Public Adjusting has been doing the long fight for a very long time for me and all of my clients, and I really do appreciate them. If you're looking for an awesome hand-tailored claims experience, West Group Public Adjusting is the way to go. Again, it has been live here on the amazing Roofing on the Rise. You guys have a blessed day. Kaleb,